Hello, this is Christine.
This is Daisy.
And this is episode 3. In this episode, we talk all about pairing, which is one of our very favorite subjects because we obsessively think about flavors and the right wine for every moment. We'll share our tips on how to select the right wine for you and your group. And here's the thing, there's really no right wine for anyone. It's all about your preference. And there's so much science to pairing and a lot of rules about this. This is not a pairing guide, so to speak. You can Google that and find the exact wine for the exact dish. It's more about finding the right wine that you enjoy and that you're going to be able to bring and share with your friends and family.
We should talk about some of the popular pairings. There is a bit of science to it, and the left brain of me sort of loves this stuff. One of the most popular ones is matching proteins with tannins, aka red wine with steak. And tannins are a compound that naturally occur on the grape skins, create that drying sensation in your mouth. They actually exist all sorts of fruit. If you were to peel a grape or if you were to peel an apple and eat the apple skin, you technically feel those tannins sort of binding to your gum line. It feels like it's drying out. So when you eat big proteins like steak or lamb, the tannins in the wine actually bind to the meat instead of your gums, and the wine tastes a little bit smoother. So this is sort of a classic red wine steak pairing. It's worth noting that salt really complicates this whole thing.
It does. This is one of the classic things where steakhouses really go wrong. Steaks are generally heavily salted, and that does wonders for the flavor of the food. But wine pairings with steak have very heavy tannins, and salt will bitter those tannins right away.
The age-old dilemma for steakhouses. The other sort of classic approach is an opposites attract, and it's all about contrast. Kind of like having a lemonade that's equal sour, equal sweet. So if you like creamier foods, a fettuccine alfredo, or a creamy cheese like a brie, it's fun to pair it with something that has a higher acidity that essentially cuts through that richness. So think a Sauv Blanc, a Chablis. It keeps the overall meal or experience from feeling too heavy. So when you have a good amount of both, it's nice to have that flavor marriage of high fattiness and creaminess with a higher acidity wine. And then the easiest one is pairing like with like. And that just means matching the same flavors and intensities. And what happens in your mouth is that your palate picks up the differences of each.
Like really racy, super acidic Sauvignon Blanc with crazy acidic fresh Chev. That's so much in one direction. But Daisy, it's like what you talked about. That's like with like.
Yeah, that's
all of a sudden the creaminess of the Chev comes out, and then the tropical flavors of the wine come out.
Like with like can also be regional. So it makes sense that food and wine have grown up together in different regions of the world. If you have a Rioja or Tempranillo from Spain, that pairs well with a paella. Another popular one would be Zinfandel here in California. It's known for its peppery flavors. That really pairs well with smoky, saucy barbecue, just things off the grill, burgers. So pairing really like with like flavors can be fun because they match really well. And then they also allow you to note the differences in the tip.
So there's a real science to all of this. And today we've invited our first podcast guest, Lauryn Tyrell. Hi, Lauryn.
Hi, I'm excited to be here.
Welcome. You have a very impressive bio. Thank you for spending time with us and talking about, again, one of our favorite things. Lauryn Tyrell is a writer, recipe developer, and food stylist based in Los Angeles. Most recently, she served as food editor for Martha Stewart Living magazine. Prior to her work in editorial, Lauryn worked as a chef in New York, Los Angeles, and Italy, and co-founded the experimental food events collaborative Lucullen Foods. She received her BA in English from UCLA and a grand diploma of culinary arts from the French Culinary Institute in New York City. She lives with her husband and children in Pasadena, and I'm honored to say she is one of my very best friends that I have known for almost my entire life. So we're curious, what are some of the classic rules that you follow in the kitchen or when cooking?
I think the golden rule in cooking is balance. And that comes from flavor, from texture, from temperature, all of those, how it's being served. It should all kind of create a sort of balance for the person enjoying it. That can be different depending on who is eating it. But I think you're always kind of striving to hit that mark. And I think, that's kind of like my philosophy in cooking. If you're going to have something that's bracingly tart, you have to offset it somewhere. The balance doesn't necessarily have to be so rigid in that you have to have a little bit of this and a little bit of that so that you're hitting all of the four corners. Like sometimes balance is a little bit more abstract. It's like you have to find it in different ways, but it's really about finding balance for the person consuming the thing, and finding that line where everything comes together in a way that's harmonious.
And that's really interesting too, because when you're cooking for people, again, you can kind of weigh in one direction, but it also comes down to preference and enjoyment. Like I love sardines, but no one in my house can stand them. And it's my preference, and the saltier, the fishier, the better in that respect. But I understand that. I mean, there's this stress in cooking for people because you have to find that balance of flavor so that it delivers a pleasurable experience, but also it's so personal.
Yeah. Sardines is a great example. You wouldn't put sardines necessarily on like a spread of anchovy, but you would put it on a piece of really good earthy bread with some great cultured butter. That's like a great balance of flavors going on where you get your sardine and you get the intensity of it, but then you've got your rich, creamy butter, and then you've got the bread that kind of grounds the whole thing. Yeah. It's so fun to play with that too, and like find where you can push one ingredient and then reel it back in with another thing, and also discovering new things that you don't necessarily think would make for like a very harmonious dish but end up do, and it can be really surprising, which is fun.
That's such a great point. It is really all about balance.
Also, obviously, temperature is a big consideration. Just a slight degree shift in a temperature of food completely changes it. It's like the difference between something being great and not liking it at all. And that is something that I think you do have to learn as a cook, that temperature is an ingredient and you have to treat it as such. If you're cooking and you can make something perfectly, but if it goes out onto the pass and it sits there and by the time it gets to the person eating it, it's not as you prepared it, it's no good, It has to reach the person the way you want it, temperature-wise. Like that is key.
And that's the thing. When picking wine, it's different because you're talking about all of these things, right? The science behind it, the balance, the beauty of it. But then also when we're buying wine, we're talking about the occasion as well. It's not always a sit down dinner, right? A lot of these considerations are when you're sitting in a restaurant and, you're talking with the somm and you're selecting the right wine for the perfect dinner. But a lot of times it's more about occasion than exact food pairing.
I totally agree with that. For me, I would say 90% of my cooking is dictated more by mood and creating a mood. And then the other 10% is hopefully executing it well with like good cooking. But honestly, a pretty good meal in a great setting where you have really nailed the mood and the environment is much more memorable than a perfectly executed meal from a culinary standpoint in bad lighting with like no vibe where you feel disconnected from the food. I will take the slightly less perfect food where the mood of the person making it was really conveyed through the food and the wine and everything. I would take that over the other one any day. That's like kind of that's like the magic of food service,
Absolutely. And same. Our number one tip is, spoiler alert, is occasion. Occasion matters, and setting matters more than any of the rules because it's exactly that. And we're all very emotional and that affects our whole experience. So it's like selecting wine for the holidays. And that can be a whole separate episode, but it's selecting for a dinner party or a family gathering or a cocktail party, or just having wines on hand that you can bring to a housewarming, or you're just having some friends over, or it's a birthday gift. All of these things are really kind of particular for the mood beyond just what you like to drink, because that's, I would say, the other golden rule. It's occasion. And then really it's important to share what you like to drink, which is honestly one of the best places to start.
Well, Christine, you and I, as wine professionals, and Lauren, obviously your background being in food, we're constantly tasked with the daunting challenge of picking the perfect wine or food for every moment. And we love the honor, sort of the resident expert of our social circles. And it's kind of stressful. It's easy when it's just you at home and you're just making dinner for your family and you can kind of experiment and have fun and have no one judge you for it. But inherently, food and wine is very social.
Yes, certainly. So for everyone not in the wine industry, we get it, right? You don't want to be embarrassed. Picking food and also picking wine is a daunting task. And you don't want to pick a wine that sucks. For us, we feel like the stakes are really high. And we kind of go into this analysis paralysis. I don't know, simply it's like tied to our self-worth.
Lauren, do you get this?
I know. I'm always asked this, especially around the holidays. People are like, what do I make? What's the perfect side? And it is very subjective, but there are some things that are like grand slams all the time. Everybody kind of likes it. And whenever I come across those things, I try and make a note of it. I actually keep a note in my notes app that has greatest hits, and with wine too. I have a photo album in my phone where I'm like, this is one that like everyone will like. And it's good to have that because I almost always forget if I don't write it down. So I definitely have some back pocket recipes that I know will be crowd pleasers that are, and also simple. I think keeping it pretty simple. I mean, from a food standpoint, recipes that are simple, easy to execute are the way to go. And
although there's so much science to it, it's more environmental, as we said.
It's not so much what are the literal entrees and sides being served. It's more, is there food and how is the food served, right? Is it past appetizers or is somebody making themselves a giant plate at the buffet and then sitting down for, 10, 15 minutes?
So honestly, one of my biggest considerations is, are you sitting or standing? So in wine, if you're standing, I certainly want it to be something more cocktail. I want it to be something really refreshing. Bubbles are great. If you're sitting, you want less trips to the bar, right? You want something that is going to hit harder with each sip. It's heavier. It feels like emotionally more the way it feels to sit and have a meal. It's more grounding. It's maybe a little bit more cerebral. You're not talking as much. You're thinking a little bit more about it. You're not kind of just knocking it back.
The food, no food is a really big deal, right? Like if there's food and you need people to eat it, you want a wine with more acidity. You want people salivating and you want them hungry and ready. But if you either don't have food or not enough food, you want a wine that doesn't make people super hungry, like a lower acidic wine, something that's sort of a sipping, sort of self-satisfying wine.
Well, this is something that, pet peeve. Here I feel like we do quite a bit of non-food drinking, which is really foreign in a lot of other places around the world. People ask us to pair wines and pick wines for events all the time. We ask about the food to understand what's there. And sometimes it's just like a cocktail hour and they're not serving anything. And like the science in another way is really rough about that scenario. The way we metabolize both things, there should be food with wine.
Then ABV is now a consideration, like how much alcohol content is in your wine.
Well, certainly too. When there's no food, you want something that's lower alcohol, lower ABV, that's more refreshing, not as boozy, easier to sip on, and then hopefully they get some food in the near future.
In terms of suggesting things for people, are you going to be outside? Is it cold? I mean, I hosted a pizza party at my house for a school event, and I ordered equal amounts of red wine and white wine. It was early October. It could have really gone either way, but it was like a little crisp that night, and like the red wine was completely gone through and barely anyone touched the white.
So I'm going to line up a scenario and see kind of where your guys' head's at. So it's a Wednesday night and you're going over to a friend's house for dinner and they also have kids. So it's sort of a play date. The kids are going to run around. So you want something that's sort of easy, but also popular enough that everyone's going to eat it. And I think the first question for you, Lauren, is what are we serving?
And you don't want to make two meals.
Yeah, because that's the
worst. Right.
Then you're like fully in the weeds in your own house, short order cooking, burning on all cylinders. No, I hate that. I try and avoid that at all costs.
Nothing more stressful than cooking for hungry children at any mealtime.
Far and away the most stressful.
Okay, so what are you serving that everyone can eat? And then we're going to pair wine for the adults.
Okay, one of my go-tos in this exact scenario is really like a chicken cutlet of any style, but I think my favorite is like a katsu because they're very forgiving. They're cheap, they're fast. You can fry them before before people come, and then just pop them in the oven to reheat. And then a pot of sticky rice, shredded cabbage, and maybe a cucumber salad, and then lay like every condiment known to man on the table. The kids will eat, and the adults will be happy. Maybe they won't eat everything, but they'll definitely eat some combination of that. And it's fun and it's casual, but it feels kind of special because it's fried, and fried food's good.
Yeah, kids will definitely eat that.
Yeah, totally.
It's great.
So I do that one a lot.
Sounds delicious. I thought you were going to say lasagna.
Well, spaghetti and meatballs would be my other one.
Okay. Right. It's like pretty
I
safe.
like a lasagna. I don't get down with lasagna. First of all, lasagna is a tremendous amount of work. I don't know. Maybe I'm alone in this, but like not a good balance. It's all soft. There's like no texture. I'm team meatball. Some kids really like lasagna, but I think a lot of kids don't like a lot of like mushy things touching each other. But I've met maybe no kids that don't like meatballs. And you can make them tiny, which kids really like a teeny tiny meatball.
So backup option is spaghetti and meatballs of varying sizes.
Yeah, and also you can make them ahead, or you're not doing it like a minute is always a good call.
Wait, you're not doing it what?
A minute, like at the last minute, like when people are there waiting for their food. It's nice when you can do things ahead of time, I think, so that you can give the impression of being effortless in what you're doing.
Right. It's just like a cauldron of simmering meatballs, tiny meatballs.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll pair some wine with that for the adults. Spaghetti and meatballs, the easiest way to do that is just pair region with region. So we're talking about Italy. Anything Sangiovese based, which is the main grape in a Chianti, is most likely going to win. Sangiovese is a red grape. It has tremendous acidity to it. And so that is one thing that will pair really nicely with a red sauce.
Because tomatoes have a lot of acid.
Tomatoes have a lot of acid and are actually pretty tricky to pair red wines with. A lot of white wines pair really well with tomatoes because they have that umami and also the high acid. But red wines, you really need to find something that's high in acid. So I would say Sangiovese. So Chianti, go with the Chianti Classico, pay a few more dollars for it. The other recommendation is Lambrusco, a sparkling red that's typically dry. Now there's so many beautiful dry Lambruscos available. Lambrusco used to be thought of as kind of this sweet, jammy, cheap wine from Italy, but that was the only thing they let us have for many decades. But now Italy is exporting a lot of the great dry Lambruscos. It's served chilled, so it's refreshing, has a little bit of sparkle to it. It's still a red wine. It's got a nice acid. It's also less boozy, so it's nice for a dinner party. It's nice for something casual. Also weeknight.
Is there a world where you would serve a white?
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so my kind of like catch-all bridge white that is surprising is Chenin Blanc. It's a white that kind of has the tart, the acidity. It has some weight to it. It's not a very popular varietal, and there's a real like beauty and art to it. So I would say you can't really go wrong with a nice Chenin Blanc.
I kind of feel like Greco Bianco would pair with a meatball.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites because it's kind of a white wine, barely an orange wine. But if you were to take a white wine and try to make it a red wine, it's all the best things of it. It's got the texture, it's got a little bit of the tannins, it's got a little bit more of the flavor. So it's almost like a white wine pretending to be like a red wine in a way that pairs really well with a meatball. I like that choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we cover katsu?
Yum. I think a cold, crisp white sounds pretty good with a katsu.
Absolutely. I would say cold, crisp white. Riesling is a really fun pairing. Also Silvaner. So lesser known, but also very popular in Germany and Austria, where Riesling is famous. And it's a beautiful grape variety with some really nice acid, but there are some Silvaners with depth that really kind of like match that fried katsu kind of, not that it's heavy, but like the fattiness of it. And then it'll also play on the opposites as well with the acidity.
That's great. Okay, so the next scenario would be a housewarming. So a friend of mine just bought a house. They're having a housewarming party. I want to bring a bottle of wine. What should I bring?
I'm going to go bubbles. I mean, bubbles is like saying white or red, right? It's an entire category. So bubbles, absolutely all the way, unless you know the person very well.
If you don't have to go champagne, you could go Cremant, which is traditionally made bubbly, but made outside of the Champagne region. And Cremant, which means creamy, is because of those smaller bubbles. It's something you can pop, so you get that whole cork effect. And I think that just texture-wise, you don't need appetizers. You're just sipping and celebrating that more savory version of champagne.
And Cremant is a really economical choice too, because they're from kind of lesser known regions. They don't have that champagne premium. So maybe if you don't know them as well or whatever it may be, it's a really nice economical choice. I would say Pet Nat. This is a good choice.
Certainly, if they have any type of artistic sort of alternative vibe in them in general, Pet Nats, there's a bit of wild side to it because depending on when they open the bottle, this is how long this has been fermenting in the bottle. So it could be more or less of any particular flavor or more or less bubbles. And I think that little variety is kind of fun.
It's more of a meal in the glass, definitely some more kind of earthy tones and so much variety in that space too. So bubbles all the way for housewarming.
This is like a good time for a Magnum.
Yeah. Also, I feel like if you bring a Magnum to a housewarming, they're probably going to open it and you're going to share it with them.
Totally.
Whereas if you bring a champagne, they may not open it.
That is such a good point. Daisy, we talk all the time about strategies on how to ensure your wine is opened.
Ensure that you get to enjoy the wine you brought.
Which is fine. Like we gift a lot that we don't open, but there is something very social about that.
Okay, so next up is one that's right around the corner. It's Easter. I'm going to a traditional dinner at my great aunt's house. Lauren, you're up.
I love Easter and I'm Greek. So for me, it's lamb, like a really herby, garlicky lamb shoulder that's either slow roasted or butterflied on the grill and then kind of build the meal around that. If I was with people that aren't lamb eaters, I think I would do like a big side of salmon with some sort of herby sauce or something like that. Lots of greens, asparagus, peas, all the green things.
There's so many different ways that you can go with lamb. So traditional, if this is your great aunt's house and you're butterflying a lamb, Bordeaux is an excellent choice, but not every Bordeaux. I would actually go more right bank Bordeaux, which is more Merlot heavy or Cab Franc heavy versus like the Cab Sauves of the world. Something that is a little bit floral, a little bit juicier, but kind of has all those notes. We have one, La Marche Cannon, that has been like one of our unicorn wines for a long time. We're completely obsessed with everything he makes. Merlot based, he does stainless steel, so it's not a lot of oak, it's not heavy, but you have all of that beautiful weight and tannin of the grape itself. It's also very aromatic, and you play to the traditional crowd. So I think that's really safe. The other one, and not to say you have to play it safe, but we are talking about our great aunt's house. And then there's a whole range of whites. Again, in the more traditional sense, Chardonnay is an absolute queen of a white wine. Chardonnay is almost a category of wine. It's like, Chardonnay, then white wine, then red wine, then rosé. Like Chardonnay is the whole thing. But a Chardonnay from Arbois that has maybe some more texture notes to it and more earth to it would be really pretty with that lamb or salmon. And then if you want to go a little bit kind of lighter, I would do the Flores. Flores out of Santa Cruz makes some of the best that we've had recently. Flores Chardonnays are just, again, really soft and just very easy drinking, but beautifully crafted.
Okay, new scenario. The kids are with their grandparents for the night. It's the weekend, and you want something that's, meaningful, fun to sip. You don't mind splurging a little bit, but most importantly, you're not distracted, and you can do whatever you want with the evening. What's the wine?
This sounds really nice.
Okay, so the wine has to be something pensive, layered, nuance. We're talking Burgundy, something with, you're going to want to smell it till the end of time. And then you drink it and you're going to keep getting different things as the bottle is open and as you go through it. They're not quick drinking wines. You don't throw them back. And without the cacophony of sounds that we typically live in, I think that's the night for these wines. This is like the go into your, your stash and pull something really special out, whatever that is. So, I mean, I go straight to Burgundy.
Yeah, I would say the trousseau that we have is really good. It's a California wine. So you first sip it, you get all the fruit, you get the raspberry, and then you keep sipping, then you get that black pepper and the fresh flavors there. Then as you sip, you get more earthier undertones. And so you're sort of getting more and more and more every time you sip it. And I think that's one of the wines that you want for this type of evening.
Absolutely. And Trousseau is natively a French grape variety, but there's some small crops in California. And so, whether it's from France, whether it's from California, I mean, again, this is the time to experiment with something a little bit nicer. And it's a pleasure to kind of think through and enjoy.
And on a warmer night, you want something like a Trousseau or a Burgundy, you would actually put a little chill on, and that would actually be slightly refreshing. I mean, I love your Burgundy idea because Pinot is one of the few wines that you can get an umami sense. Like it actually has that sort of mushroomy earthiness that a lot of wines don't have. And so this idea that you're tasting it in that sort of middle back part of your tongue, that you're actually picking up flavors from there, makes it kind of fun and makes it really sip worthy and something you want to think about.
This is a time to engage with your your wine and your food, your cooking, which is nice. Like we don't have a lot of time to actually engage with what we're consuming.
I feel like now that we've picked the most important part, the wine.
Yeah.
What are we pairing to the wine?
I want to make vongole because pasta is really at its best if you can make it for like two people, especially one like you can take your time and you can just really engage with the process of making it. You can use a splash of a very good wine in your pasta and then drink the rest of it. So I think vongole would be my go-to. Pretty straightforward preparation, but maybe with some like nice breadcrumbs over the top of it.
You literally just named one of my favorite pasta dishes.
I mean, I love it so much, but it's really the most pleasurable to make if you can just make it for you and one other person.
Oh.
And then I think my other one would be just like a really, really good simple roast chicken with potatoes, really good French mustard, and phenomenal bottle of white wine, like a white Burgundy.
That's your Burgundy. Yep.
Yeah.
So I think we're going with Burgundy. So everyone prepare either a white and a red Burgundy for your night.
Okay. Last scenario. So my kids' school is having a social event and they're asking people to contribute wine. It's about 30 people. You don't really know them. It's a mix of young and older parents. The principal might be there, maybe a couple teachers, the staff. You got to show up with something in hand.
I mean, this is the most stressful thing ever for a wine professional. And I do this for our school as well. Like I would have no one else choosing the wine. Like I, of course, want to choose the wine, but it's so stressful because it means so much.
And you don't have the chance to pitch every single wine. So it's got to land on its own.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, it has to be very singular. Here's the advice there. And this also, it doesn't have to be a school event, right? It could be like you're going to a party with a bunch of people. You don't know who's there. You're tasked with the wine, whatever it may be. It's a crowd. Here's our best advice is bring a unicorn wine. Bring the wine that you absolutely love, that you keep thinking about. When you find that wine, buy a case of it, keep it on hand because it lands every time.
It's the one you've been saving in your notes app.
That's it. It's totally the Notes app wine. And we have so many of them over the years. Currently, we're obsessed with everything from Amvi. Coquelicot is another one. Jean-Yves from Bordeaux. Anything from L'Archetipo. The Domaine de la Briseau wines from the Loire. We have right now a red and a white from them, a Pinot Denis and a Chenin Blanc. They're off the charts good. You don't have to think about the food. You don't have to think about anything else. They're just beautiful unicorn wines, and find that wine for you and just make it your go-to. That's the only way to win.
I feel like we should, on our site, for these wines, we should put the description, P.S., this is a unicorn wine. Mm-hmm. Or we should just tag.
We should have a whole tab, like a unicorn. I'm tapped.
Or maybe we just call it Notes app.
Unicorn/Notes app wines.
We should, because that's the only way to succeed in this very difficult scenario.
Well, the other thing I was thinking is you just pick the wine you really like to drink. And even if it's not a unicorn wine, you bring it. So when somebody pours you a glass of wine, you know it's one you like to drink. And then you kind of win, right? And so if somebody asks you at the wine, you're totally going to talk about it because you love it. So I feel like you have to get a little selfish in these moments and bring the wine that you want to drink, the one you want to talk about, and not stress so much about making everyone else's taste buds happy.
That goes for cooking too. I mean, it's like kind of trite, but it's really true. Like with cooking, you know, if you're stressing about what to make for a dinner party or whatever, it's like most of the time, if you cook something that you genuinely want and you like, that translates the best, you know, than trying to please everybody. I feel like that's the best recipe for success, is to just like cook what you like. And
such a good advice. And trust your palate. I think, you know, especially in wine, but also in food, right? We're so concerned with, again, all the rules and all the do's and the don'ts and what's a good bottle, what's a good producer, what's a good year, what's a good region. None of it matters because honestly, especially in natural wine, it changes every year and it changes every vintage. So you have to trust your palate, and what's good to you is going to be good to a lot of other people as well.
What are the top 3 things that people should think about when they're trying to pick a wine for a moment?
Okay, so number 1, occasion. It's not what holiday is it, but is it celebratory? Is it just a casual setting? Are you sitting? Are you standing? What's the temperature, right? What's the season? You have to think about the environment more than the food because it's going to go a lot farther. Number 2, you have to think about the audience. This plays into a lot of my decisions. I don't know, for better or for worse, but I like to think about whether it's a traditional crowd or more of an adventurous crowd, because in wine right now, there's such a wide variety and so much beauty in both categories. It's just kind of like reading the room a little bit and understanding your audience. And then number 3, it's food, right? I would say generally when you think about pairing, the first thing that comes to your mind is food, but I would put it as number 3. It's definitely a consideration, but it's not my first consideration. Although, of course, there's a science to it and there's a real beauty in matching those flavors and finding that balance.
Okay. You mentioned sardines earlier, which is not everyone's favorite food.
It's one of mine, but not everyone's. No.
Right. What are some of your unexpected favorite food and wine pairings?
Okay. My first one is actually a food and food pairing. This I learned very early on in my flavor career, if you will. It was my early days of Whole Foods, and there was a cheese specialist, and her name was Costco. And Costco, if you're out there, thank you for this pairing because I've used it for the last 20 years. And Cliff, too, if you're listening, you will remember this one. One of her favorite pairings was crystallized ginger and aged Gouda. And it is one of the most magical opposites attract, complete party in your mouth. The balance is exactly there. There's something about the caramelized flavor of the aged Gouda and the creaminess, but then also those like salt crystals that form when the Gouda ages.
You get a little bit of floral from the aged cheese.
Absolutely. It's totally floral. And then you have crystallized ginger, which again has that like kind of like crusty crunch to it, but that's more of the sugary sweet side that brings out the creaminess. And then you have the tart kind of spiciness. It is the most magical pairing, and I urge everyone listening to try it. That's one of my most favorite flavor matchups.
Okay. I'm going to go for another opposites attract. Mine is a champagne and potato chips. I had a friend who served champagne and fried chicken at his wedding, and I thought it was so brilliant because champagne is so often served with the wedding cake as a food pairing, and it's absolutely horrible. The cake usually weathers the situation, like the cake tastes okay, but then the champagne is awful. You have this beautiful champagne, and you're just puckering through it. and you just completely dismiss anything that was beautiful about the champagne. But I think the real taste bud explosion is champagne potato chips, because you have the bubbles and the acidity paired with the oiliness and sort of the savoriness of the potato chip. And then you get the texture, the crunch of it to kind of bring out sort of a different layer of the champagne. Do you remember that photo shoot when you opened up the champagne and we were doing a potato chip pairing setup and you almost dropped the bottle?
Exploded over our newly bootstrapped photo room.
Yes, our photo studio, a bowl of chips. It doesn't sound very fancy, but it was very, very artfully placed potato chips in a bowl. And then we just had wet, soggy chips in a bowl with a puddle of bubbly mess just sort of like moving around.
Still to this day, one of our best photos and clips, though, was that blooper.
It's probably buried on our Instagram somewhere. And the voiceover was like, "Wah!" Something like that. Like, oh, okay, well, that photo shoot's done. So potato chips and champagne are my go-to.
Okay, Lauren, do you have any just wildly fantastic, weird combos?
I mean, this is so dumb, but I have a Gouda one and a potato chip.
Go for it. Oh my gosh.
Potato chips and caviar are like match made in heaven. And you throw champagne in there, and that is a perfect scenario, I think. I love potato chips and caviar. And also, my friend Shara, who was a food editor at Martha Stewart, turned me onto this a couple years ago. But in springtime, when asparagus is like coming into season and it's really peak, I really, not to sound snobby, but like I really don't like asparagus except in spring. And very, very simply prepared asparagus, like blanched or steamed asparagus with goat Gouda, is like incredible.
Do you shave it? Like a shave?
No, just like on a, like as like a little appetizer board. Like slices of like a midnight moon.
Oh my God.
Then nice just spirit, you know, just like crudité style, but blanched or steamed, you know. It's really, really good. I don't know what it is about those two together, but give it a try. It's like a perfect springtime pairing.
Sounds amazing.
So we like to close out every episode with a couple wine facts, something a little bit fun and off the beaten path, and just gets us talking a little bit more about wine. So Christine, do you want to start with yours?
Sure. Okay, my obscure fact of the day is that in ancient Rome, wines were often flavored with spices, herbs, and even seawater, which was very surprising. And one popular mixture was called conditum. Conditum combines wine with honey, herbs, and various spices. And this practice was actually so common that the Romans considered these flavored wines to be more sophisticated and desirable than even plain wines. So the Latin name translates roughly as spice. And there is a recipe that was translated from an earlier Byzantine agricultural work. And the recipe goes like this: 8 scruples of peppercorns, washed and dried and carefully pounded, 1 sextarius of Attic honey, and 4 or 5 sextarii of an old white wine, and let them be mixed.
This is like mulled wine, but like a very traditional mulled wine.
It is. It's a Byzantine mulled wine. And I love the idea that it has both honey and then the spicy peppercorn note.
Okay.
And that's my weird, obscure fact. A new mulled wine recipe inspired by the Romans, ancient Romans.
Okay. So mine is about a very popular Chilean wine. Back in the 1850s, Chilean winemakers wanted to up their game, if you will. So they went to Bordeaux and they brought back Merlot. And it looked like Merlot, although it had a couple of nuanced flavors that they figured was just because of Chilean climate and soil. So it had a little bit more green peppery, a little more smoky, and they just figured this is Southern Hemisphere Merlot compared to Northern Hemisphere Merlot. But then in 1994, so over 100 years later, a French grape expert came to Chile and he noticed the quote-unquote Merlot took a little bit longer to ripen, a couple extra weeks, and the leaves looked like Merlot leaves, but they were slightly different. So he DNA tested it, and as you've already figured out, this is not Merlot. Can you guess what grape this was?
I know what it is. What's interesting about this grape is that it has a lot of those pyrazine notes that we actually talked about in another episode. But it has a real like green pepper, like a fresh bell pepper note or a jalapeno note. Should I guess, or do you want to tell us?
I feel like you're going to guess it.
I think it's Carmenere.
It is Carmenere. They thought Carmenere went extinct In Bordeaux in the early 1800s, they thought that the grape disease phylloxera had wiped out the entire population of it. It turns out Chile had unknowingly preserved this sort of lost piece of French wine history, kept this grape alive for 100 years, and now suddenly Chile had the largest plantings of the entire world of this long-lost grape. And now Carmenere is Chile's signature grape. Like no one else in the world can own this. And they were sort of hiding it or growing it in plain sight for over 100 years.
Cool. So they preserved it from going extinct.
And then they put themselves on the map with it.
Right. Chile's most famous wine.
Okay.
Well, every time we end these episodes, it's the most awkward thing ever. Lauren, do you want to engage in this like awkward sign off?
Yeah, what's your sign off?
We have none. We're just trying out a few things.
And that's it. That's our episode. So thank you, Lauren, for joining us.
Thank you, guys. This was so fun.
This is, again, it's one of our favorite topics. And yes, thank you for joining us and indulging us. And now I'm starving, so we should all go eat and drink.